sit down and pen another verse. Music is my therapy.
Hello again, my friends, and you are my friends, and welcome back to your Formula One pit stop for a Monday night. It is, of course, Monday, the 11th of October. We are a day removed from the Turkish Grand Prix. An unexpected winner, potentially. What will Steve do without his bemoaning Bottas segment this week? Some of the big hitting questions we've got as we head into this. I'm going to level with you right now. I've been a bit busy with family, health, the platform. I sadly didn't watch the race. I know it's unforgivable of me, and Steve is bound to be giving me a telling off when he comes on. But through the power of YouTube and communication, I've got 10 questions that I want to know from Steve after this weekend's race. So I'm somebody that's a new fan to the sport. I'm still a rookie. I'm still learning or getting my driving license at the F1 level. Is it an F1 license, Steve? Nod your head if that's the right answer. Okay, we're getting there. See, knowledge is improving. So I'm going to ask. Well, yeah, I know it's teetering. It's teetering now, like the old good shit lollipop. I tell you what, let's go and bring Steve in because I'm literally teetering. I mean, if I'm going to get a disapproving look, I might as well get it on the camera and get it some,
Yeah, I mean, you're learning. You do need a super license to be in Formula One. So
super license. That's the word I was looking for.
I
knew it was a special kind of license, and not a HGV one like we all desperately are trying to get hold of because the money sounds quite good. Hey, look, I want to know as a new fan, as a rookie, but somebody who didn't manage to catch the race, and there will be those out there because post COVID. Not that COVID's disappeared, but it's only we're all back to having girlfriends and wives, and I have got a wife, not a girlfriend. I haven't got both either. Just to clarify, in case my wife's watching this, I haven't got to go. My wife.
Explain that one.
Yeah, absolutely. But we all, suddenly getting itineraries of right. This was cancelled here. It's now this weekend, and it's like, oh, for fuck's sake. So we're about to have a social lives. But you managed to watch the race, correct?
I did. Yes, of course.
Perfect. Now, sadly, we weren't here last week because Neil Moles was on a sun lounger sunning himself on holiday. The bad news is, if you're a fan of positivity, he's not here again this week because, again, he's sunning himself still. Do you think it's rude to go on holiday in the middle of October, Steve?
I don't know. He's got to have some time away.
No, he hasn't.
No, I mean, we're capable of running the ship,
Well,
I'll let him off. I'll let him off.
You're the aficionado. You might be.
I could talk about F1 for days. Even if it's just shouting in a room by myself, I could talk about Formula One for days.
We could record that. And this is probably as close as we're going to get to it, because if you're the captain of the ship and Steve's your first in command, then you've got the boat washer, the cleaner, as first in command today, because I know nothing about any of the gadgets in front of me. But we'll do our best. We'll do our very best. I think I kind of want to start with, if that's okay, with the winner, because for me it's unexpected. We normally have a bemoaning Bottas segment because you're not a huge fan of Valtteri, but he won it this weekend. That much I do know. So talk me through how Valtteri Bottas managed to win this race.
Yeah, fair play to him. I mean, I think people have pretty much written him off. He's out of the championship fight, but he's still got that race pace.
Did Mercedes mess up their strategy? Was that more what?
No, Bottas would have won that race regardless. He was so far ahead of Lewis and so far ahead of Max. He would have won that race
disagrees,
regardless.
Doesn't he? Because Lewis did say that the strategy was wrong, didn't he?
So, yeah, Lewis was quite critical after the race. But now with Valtteri, I mean, Lewis came into the race knowing he had that 10-second penalty, 10-place penalty, sorry. So that was him pretty much out of the running. The highest he could start is 11th. Mercedes needed Valtteri to be up there to try and hold off Max as much as they could, and he did. And he kept Max behind him. He ran away. He dominated the race. He didn't put a foot wrong. Turkey last year, he had about 75 million spins, and he finished 14th. One of the worst races of his Mercedes career, and he's come back with one of the best races of his Mercedes career this year. So
just in time, because
fair
his
play to him.
Mercedes career is obviously dwindling down. We do know that. I'm going to press you on two questions here a little bit, really. First of all, that strategy. Talk us through, if you maybe those that are new to the sport, like myself, or even those that are experienced vets like you and Neil. What was the strategy? Why did Lewis Hamilton feel they got it so wrong, and why do you, as a fan, feel they got it so right?
It was a tricky one because it wasn't really raining, especially towards the end of the race, but the track wasn't drying up, so you could see a dry line. So Aston Martin decided to pit Vettel and put him on slick tyres, which as soon as he came out of the pits, it was obvious that was the wrong choice because he was sliding around all over the place. So they had a gamble of leaving drivers out on worn intermediates or boxing them for fresh ones. And they pitted some drivers at the right time, like Verstappen, Perez, Bottas. They all pitted at the right time. But Hamilton pitted too late. So the track was in this sort of weird crossover where it wasn't dry enough for slicks, but it wasn't wet enough for intermediates. So the drivers who'd stayed out, their tyres were getting so worn, their intermediates were getting so worn, they were turning into slicks. But they still had more grip. But Hamilton...
So it was a tyre issue then, and Hamilton feels he could have maybe stayed on with the tyre.
Yeah, with that, they pulled him in.
Is he right in that?
Yeah, I think he could have done because Ocon did. Ocon did a zero-stop race. So for his tyres were gone by the end of it, but fair enough. But the issue was with Hamilton because towards the end of the race, he was then on fresh intermediate tyres, which are obviously as grippy as you can be for that sort of condition or for that sort of wetness. It was too dry for them. So the tyres are basically just scrubbing themselves to pieces in those first couple of laps, which is why he lost ground and why people like Pierre Gasly, Lando Norris behind him closed that gap. But when that graining wore off and the tyres then became virtually slicks again, then he picked up the pace. But it did cost him the chance because he was fighting, up there with Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez. He could maybe have sneaked onto the podium, but
hey, say la vie, he didn't. But can Valtteri Bottas come into the reckoning at all now? Is this the? I'm obviously not. I don't think for the championship, but can he play a part at all as we come into the rest of the season? Do you think?
I reckon this will give him some confidence too. Mercedes have got a good footing in the constructors' table. They're still ahead of Red Bull. He knows he's not got anything in the drivers' championship to fight for. So all he can do really is fight for the team, if not for himself. He's going to want to fight for himself, don't get me wrong, because he wants to go into Alfa Romeo next year knowing 100%. That he is capable of this. And this could be one of his last chances to fight for a race victory. He's 100%. Not a young guy anymore. Alfa aren't going to be in a position to win races.
You wouldn't have thought so.
I think he'll do what he can because he is, at the end of the day, he is still a team player. I think he is going to want to do what he can for the team. So,
absolutely. I want to go back to a tweet you made, and I'm just trying to find it in regards to our favourite driver, and that's Mazepin. But I can't seem to find it. But you more or less just said this is becoming a bit of a joke. He's so dangerous, and I can't find it. What you? Oh, here we go. Mazepin is just dangerous. That could have been nasty. Talk to us about Mazepin because obviously it was a bit dangerous again from what I can read on that tweet.
He's a rookie and you can expect some rookie errors in a rookie season. We've seen it. We saw it from Norris when he was a rookie. We saw it from Russell. We've seen it from Schumacher. But a fundamental thing when you're a rookie and even an experienced driver, check your bloody mirrors because you're coming through sort of into turn 10. I think it's turn 10. A fast right-hander on the straight sort of kink thing. And you've got Hamilton right behind you in a much faster Mercedes coming up to lap you. And Mazepin's over to the left, and then he just moves across onto the racing line. So Hamilton has to take avoiding action. There was lucky there wasn't a crash there. And I don't know what Mazepin was doing. It was just a complete lack of awareness from him. And it's something, I get the feeling there's something there that's going to happen, and a driver is not going to be too happy when it does happen.
Hamilton wouldn't have been if it had been Hamilton. I mean, you might have been as a fan because you're not a great fan of Hamilton's, but if Hamilton was upset with the strategy, he'd have been livid with a end of the grid driver.
I mean, that's it. I mean, I'm rooting more for Verstappen to win this title than Hamilton, but I don't want to see Hamilton in a massive crash, and that would have been a huge crash, because they're going so quick around that turn.
Because it robs you of that fair competition that we all want.
Yeah.
We want whether you want Verstappen, Hamilton, or whoever to win the championship, you want that fair battle. You want to know if Verstappen wins it, that he wins it because he beat Hamilton, not because Mazepin was Mazepin and caused an issue or two. And sometimes you joke, don't you? And you say, I've got more points than that on my license. Mazepin's got more points in his super license, I think, than he has this year.
He's got a few. Yeah, he's not got the most. I think that's Norris at the minute.
Right. But Norris is at least picking up points, Steve.
But Norris is doing a good job. Mazepin, all he can do is fight with Schumacher, because realistically, that Haas is so far off the pace. Mick Schumacher, fair play to him, did an incredible job getting that car into Q2 on Saturday. Amazing job from Mick. But Mazepin is constantly losing out. And although Mick has had his fair share of errors this season as well, he's not really causing the same backlash, and he's not really, causing safety concerns like Mazepin is when he did that. Like you say, I want the championship to be decided by Hamilton and Verstappen fighting wheel to wheel on circuit. I don't want to see, obviously, the contacts at Silverstone. Whoever was at fault for that, we'll not go back into that. But I don't want to see that. I don't want to see Hamilton and Verstappen taking each other out like they did in Monza. I want to see them fighting wheel to wheel from lap 1 to lap whatever. At the last, I want to see a last lap decider in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah. I'm going to ask another Hamilton question, and I fear it may not be the last time he comes up. I mean, how can he? He's the GOAT, so he's going to come up quite a few times in any F1 discussion. But Hamilton, Perez, was that fight fair? I've heard a few whispers. Was that fight fair for you?
It was a great fight. I mean, Perez did what he needed to do for the team and for him. He's had a few disappointing races. He's not been on the podium since France. That was brilliant. I mean, Hamilton was the quicker car. The Mercedes were far quicker than the Red Bulls this weekend. And Hamilton's defense was a little bit, or more offense really, because Perez had the position, but was a tricky one because he forced Perez so wide. He actually forced Perez over the pit entry. And Perez had to cut the other side of the bollards, come back onto the circuit. And I mean, fair play to Perez for keeping his foot in it, not backing down, not having contacts, because that could have gone really wrong. I expected a penalty for Perez, to be honest, because he's technically entered the pit lane and had to jump back out. If it was the other way around, he'd get a penalty. I think it was the right thing not to penalise him. It was a fair fight with Hamilton and Perez, but that defending was it was touch and cloth. It was a tricky one.
Yeah. Good evening, Monty. Welcome in. It's a more condensed F1 show tonight, because obviously I didn't manage to catch the race, and Neil's not here with Steve. So as we sort of head around to the final stretch, you mentioned Norris there at the top. How is Norris's? I'm a keen interest in the British drivers. Obviously, he took a podium a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. How was his race on Sunday, and the team's overall race? Do you feel? How do you feel that went?
It was a little more understated, nothing really spectacular. I mean, Ricciardo out in Q1, which was shocking. Just wrong place, wrong time. Posted his lap time too early, and it was all going wrong for him in the race as well. It was all going wrong in the race as well until, the conditions changed and he did make up places, Ricciardo. But it was a quiet weekend for McLaren. It was unusual because one of their drivers is doing something fantastic.
Yeah, and rare occasions so are too. Can they take third in the constructors? Do you think, or is third looking like somebody else? I'd love, and I know Neil, who's not here, would absolutely love it. He supports the team. I'd love them to be sneaking into that top three. But can they do it, or has somebody else got its own?
I would love it. I mean, I think deep down, even though obviously I'm a Williams fan at heart, I think I've got a love for Ferrari. I think it's just because my favourite driver was Barrichello, and obviously he was always in red when I first started watching F1.
It's not going to be Williams.
It definitely won't be Williams. Definitely not.
Sometimes that's where you wind up the stars. I'm not knowledgeable
No,
yeah.
I think
But
my
I'm
point
more
is,
knowledgeable than that.
well, I think my point is, I want McLaren to do well because I do like McLaren. They're a British team. It's great to see them fighting back, considering the years they've had since 2015 or 2014, really, and 2015, that first year with Honda. But everyone's got a soft spot for Ferrari, and it's great to see them becoming more competitive again. And if you asked me a few races ago, could McLaren get third? I'd say yes, because Ricciardo won in Monza. Norris has got a few podiums.
Yep.
And Ferrari looked a little bit off it, but now Ferrari were amazing yesterday. Charles Leclerc fourth, almost on the podium. He was leading the race for a period of time. Sainz fought from the back of the grid to finish, I think, eighth, which incredible.
That's quite amazing, isn't it? Because we spent the summer months without the races looking at the teams individually, and Ferrari were a team that kept coming up because the leadership at Ferrari was saying this is going to be a good year, it's going to be a better year. The year before, obviously, last year Ferrari wasn't great at all. So to hear Ferrari in that top three conversation, that's more or less what they kind of said would happen, and we scoffed a little bit. So, are you surprised, having known what or said what you thought in the summer, which was fairly accurate? Are you surprised to be talking about Ferrari in the top three? Because this year you didn't. No one, I think, expected it, did they?
No, I think with Ferrari you can never write them off because they are Ferrari. They've been around since day one of Formula One. But last year was so bad. The car was awful, and this year's car is just an evolution of last year's car before obviously the change for next year, which I think most teams are looking at. So I am surprised. I was thinking they're maybe around the sort of fifth, sixth mark, maybe a little bit more competitive, but you've got such a tight midfield with the likes of Alpine, AlphaTauri, who are doing so well, certainly Pierre Gasly, and obviously McLaren as well, and Aston Martin. It's such a tight field. So, yeah, fair play to Ferrari, and I think they could, as much as it might hurt Neil, I think they could get that third place. Because Charles Leclerc seems to be getting back to his best, back to Charles Leclerc.
Absolutely, yeah. By the sounds of it, absolutely. And that'll be an interesting battle to watch in the coming weeks. Another championship change. I think that's probably where we should sort of sign it off, really, the championship change, because that's the one we all come to see. Highly debatable. Obviously, as we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, but it is the thing that we're all chasing. There's been another lead at another change at the top. Talk us through the championship change.
Yeah, Verstappen is now 6 points clear of Lewis Hamilton, which I like that comment. Yeah, it's a tricky one.
Is it, Steve? Is it, to answer the question?
I would say so. Yeah, I mean, I know obviously we know who Lotus have got that association with, but think of their F1 history. If you're a Senna fan, Andretti, Jim Clark, I think it's okay. True. I wouldn't turn down a Lotus, to be honest, if someone offered it to me.
Well, no. If Monty wants to sort of share the Lotus out, I'd happily take it for a spin for a couple of years. It's fine. You understand, Mont. But yeah, championship change, Steve.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? We've seen so many championship changes this year. So Hamilton lost the lead again after getting it back, I think, in Russia, or the race before, can't remember. He's now 6 points behind Verstappen after coming into this race. Yeah, that's it. After coming into this race, 2 points ahead. He knew he had the penalty, so it was really a case of damage limitation for him on a circuit where Mercedes were stronger, so it was probably better. Because on another circuit, Verstappen probably would have stolen that lead from Bottas and gone off and won it.
Well, you all had Hamilton winning it when we spoke ahead of the race, because you said this is a race that traditionally they're good at. So when I saw who had won it, I wasn't that surprised because Bottas is part of that team. But still, it hurts. It hurts Hamilton, but rewards Verstappen. And by sounds you want Verstappen to be winning it all.
I would love it. I mean, mainly because I'm more of a Verstappen fan than a Hamilton fan, but it's just nice to see a championship challenge with Hamilton and someone else who's not his teammate. We've seen Bottas has never been able to compete. And they had 2018-ish with Sebastian Vettel in the Ferrari back when they were competitive, and Vettel was leading a championship at one point. And it all seemed to go wrong when he threw away a victory in Germany, his home Grand Prix, and it seemed to go downhill for him from there. And it's been so long since we've had two different teams going all the way throughout the season fighting for this title. You've got Red Bull, who were dethroned by Mercedes, now looking at taking that crown back. It's so good. And
it's back to what it used to
change. Yeah, it is, and this constant change of the lead between Mercedes, not the constructors. It's been Mercedes for a while now because Perez hasn't really been where he needs to be.
But the drivers,
Verstappen, Hamilton. This constant change is just so good. It is
as a neutral. It is as a new fan.
Yes,
and it gives the F1 sport something to build around. And I know those particular tweets upset aficionados like yourself, and there's other drivers, and that is true. But when it is this exciting, it is a way of attracting new people to the sport.
This is the biggest title fight F1 has had for years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Between this highly rated young hotshot and the old guard, Lewis Hamilton. I sort of feel sorry for you because you came into Formula One last year where there was no crowd. It got postponed for months because of COVID, and there was no crowds. And although we went to different circuits, it was a boring championship because Mercedes was so far ahead and Hamilton was so far ahead of Bottas. It was really one-sided championship. And now this year, we're being treated to these incredible races where usually boring venues are insane. I mean, Turkey yesterday was, if this was last year, it would be amazing because Hamilton
that's the
down
crowd,
in
though,
fifth.
Isn't it? The crowd giving the drivers juice, and it's
the crowds. You cannot thank crowds enough. Like Silverstone was amazing, but like if you watched this race last year, it would be amazing because Hamilton's down in fifth, Bottas is leading, Verstappen's trying to keep up. But this year it was one of the more understated races. It was a bit like, well, it was all right. That's how much we've been treated in 2021 to amazing races. Incredible.
There you go. You see, there you go. It's all heating up, and hopefully, definitely this time next week, Neil will be back. We will be completing a full show for you. Although we only have done 9 minutes less than we normally do, so it's still not done too bad considering the circumstances. Obviously, where are we next?
America. Next circuit, the Americas in Texas.
And that's this Sunday coming, not a week off.
No, next week after. We've got a week off again. Yeah, there is another triple header coming up. I think around Brazil with the triple header.
As a new fan, that doesn't annoy me.
It's how it always used to be, though. F1 was always every fortnight, but mostly every fortnight. But they've added obviously more and more races. And
is that because of the transportation and everything else involved with the sport?
I think so, but it's also just come down to there's a lot more races. And championships used to be 16, 17, 18 races long. Now you've got 23. 22? Obviously, a couple of cancellations because of COVID, but these seasons are so much longer than they used to be. So you do have triple headers, which I love, but you do need the odd week off because it does take its toll on the teams, the drivers, all the logistics.
It does, you can imagine that. All of the logistical nightmares that have to go involved with it all. It must be something. So you're right. You are right. But as a fan, as I say, you just get.
I'd rather have a race every week.
Yeah, well, give me a chance to watch the Turkish race and catch up on that and get next week we'll go into more details. We'll look at maybe some Raikkonen favourite moments. We'll come up with something for you, so it's not a dead air week. But there you go, Monty, straight off the gate. We'll write that down for next week, Monty. What's your favourite era of F1? That's a great leading question for Steve and Neil next week. So give Steve 7 days to think about it. Gives Neil a little bit less time because he's on a sun lounger, so sipping margaritas and listening to The Weekend. So we'll forgive him. But yeah, Steve, we're done. We're dusted. Week in the books. We're good to be back. I'm glad we did it. Lead us out, my man.
Yeah, thanks very much for watching. I mean, I'm going to answer that quickly now. It's the early noughties because that's the era I really great up with. So,
Steven!
Sorry, I had to. Sorry. But yeah, thank you very much for watching.
Next week, no problem.
Great seeing you commenting again. Love it. Love the questions and everything. So, we'll see you next week. There'll be a full team and a full show. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week.